This is Joe Biden, the President of the United States. For the past 2 years, voters have been questioning whether or not Biden deserves a second term in office, and the results could not be clearer. A recent CNN poll found that 66% of voters say that if Joe Biden wins re-election in 2024, that it would be a disaster or a setback for the country. This includes 27% of Democrats and 73% of independents/other. Furthermore, only 35% of voters have a favorable opinion of Joe Biden. And it's not just Biden's job approval. Voters have very real concerns that he is not mentally and physically capable of being the commander-in-chief. And in a recent NPR PBS Marist poll, registered voters were asked about Biden's mental fitness. 62% said that there was a real concern about his ability to be president. This includes 36% of Democrats and 69% of independents. And based on Joe Biden's public appearances, they have every right to have those concerns. Whether he's tripping and falling upstairs, or shaking hands with a ghost, or seeing that Biden can't spell words.
We cut the deficit by $160 billion. Billion, B-I-L-L-I-O-N, dollars. We have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know the average tax rate they pay? 8, E-I-G-H%. 8%.
Or how Biden doesn't understand basic geography or know that you can't build train tracks on an ocean.
Oh, I'm serious, not a joke. Well, we're going to win and we're going to help. We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean. I could go on, but I'm not. I'm going off script. I'm going to get in trouble.
Or here when he started walking the wrong way off a stage and his daughter and a man in uniform had to grab him and turn him around. Which I guess is better than falling on stage. And of course, it's better than falling off a non-moving bicycle. And then there are the countless times where Biden just butchers people's names beyond recognition, like this classic.
And Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce it, Shanga Kawawa. I think I pronounced it correctly.
Or when he completely messes up a line from the teleprompter, gets frustrated, and looks like he's on the verge of giving up.
Florida Small Business Winner Award winner, or Business Week winner. You won. If they have to pay out $159 billion let.
There are times where he does appear, frankly, old.
You know, he's always had this somewhat understated style. I mean, right. I know I debated him. I ran against him for a year. And I know that he is someone that feels very deeply about things. He's just not someone that gets up and yells all the time.
Not a joke. Think about it. Think about what you'd think about at the time. Think about how you'd feel. I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
Oh, sure. Biden's problem is his somewhat understated style. And finally, as I've pointed out in the past, there's Biden's constant use of the phrase inflection point.
I believe America, and you're tired of hearing me say it, I'm sure, is at an inflection point. We really are. I know you're tired of hearing me say this. We really are at one of the inflection points in history. I know it's an overused phrase, but I've been using it a lot. We're at an inflection point. It's an overused phrase these days, but it's still accurate. We're at an inflection point in American history. We stand at an inflection point. I know you're tired of hearing me say this when I was running, and I continue to say it every day.
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? And so, on June 13th, during his remarks to members of his administration, Biden told the following anecdote about inflection points twice.
We're at a real inflection point in American history. An inflection point, my physics professor would say, was a point where you're going down the highway at 60 miles an hour. You take a rapid turn at a right angle or at a 30-degree angle, going in an opposite direction. You can never get back on the track. And your destiny is changed at least for a couple generations. And we're at one of those inflection points.
8 minutes later.
The word is, as I said again, inflection point. The decisions we made today, I used to have a physics professor talk about inflection point. You're going down the highway at 60 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you take a hard right turn. You're never going to get back on the path you were for at least another couple decades. That's where we are.
What the And yes, Biden told the same anecdote about his physics professor and what an inflection point is, which it isn't. And then minutes later, he told it again. And to be clear, this was not to put emphasis on an important point. It's because Biden forgot what he said just moments earlier.
An inflection point, my physics professor would say, was the point where you're going down the highway at 60 miles an hour. I used to have a physics professor talk about an inflection point. You're going down the highway at 60 miles an hour.
And this isn't your sweet, sweet, absent-minded grandfather. This is the President of the United States. If he can't remember that he said a thing just moments earlier, then one has to assume that he's forgetting anything and everything. And it's only going to get worse. I'd also like to point out that I'm the very first person on the internet to report on it, which means that this is probably the first time that you're hearing about it, because no one, and I mean no one in the media, reported on it, because they're more worried about boxes in Trump's bathroom. Anyway, since it's a special occasion of sorts, I thought I'd try something a little different today, and thought it would be nice to listen to a response from a very special guest.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, apparently I'm in this video. Not exactly sure how this happened, but when Don't Walk Run Productions asks you to be featured in one of his amazing videos, there's only one logical response. It would be an honor and I'll do it. So here's my contribution. Joe Biden's brain damaged, literally, and Democrats don't want to acknowledge it. They're allergic to truths that don't benefit them politically. Biden had 2 cranial aneurysms in the 1980s.
I had 2 cranial aneurysms. And they literally had to take the top of my head off. I mean, they take a saw and they cut your head off and go in to find the artery that is, one was leaking, the other that hadn't before it burst. Then I had the second operation. They found an aneurysm on the other side of my brain. But in between, I had a major embolism. It almost killed me.
And apparently it also has something to do with his, let's say, weird tendencies as well. You know, little things like sniffing little girls, touching them inappropriately, and rubbing random strangers. In fact, many members of the Senate recall Joe Biden coming back from his brain surgery and all of a sudden engaging in very weird behavior.
When he returned, almost everyone who knew him detected differences. But afterwards, there seemed to be a change in his personality. I've talked specifically to people who worked in the Senate at the time, to a former senator. Some of this unusual behavior that's been remarked, you know, the sniffing of girls' hair, this incident that Bernie Sanders recalls, where as they were on a stage were backstage waiting to go out on the debate platform, Biden started rubbing his back.
What?
Biden making inappropriate comments to women or children. Biden saying the strangest things about ethnic groups, attempts at ethnic humor. All of that is past the time when Biden had these aneurysms.
It's not even a joke or a meme anymore, it's beyond that at this point. He's a man deteriorating before our very eyes, and Democrat officials pretend that it doesn't exist. They present this narrative as if he's fit, producing results. Listen, fat, I challenge you to a push-up contest, Joe. It's one thing to be unaware of his condition, it's another to be fully aware of it, yet purposely misrepresent the truth and push him forward as the party leader. At that point, I'd argue it's pretty much elder abuse. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Now back to Andrew.
And on that note, that's it for now. A very special thanks to liberal Hivemind for dropping by. So cool. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. If there is next time.